Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
California. What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
Los Angeles.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, May 18th. LA Galaxy coming off of a 2-0 loss to Columbus, and hey, surprise, surprise, the worst team in Major League Soccer. I don't know, if you didn't want to hear that, I guess maybe I should have made it a little softer for you, but I feel like everybody deserves to see where that's at and understand where the LA Galaxy are at. Getting ready to head off to DC and play them on Saturday before coming home and playing on Tuesday at BMO Stadium there against LAFC for U.S. Open Cup. So a lot of games rapid fire, a little rotated lineup in Columbus, a lot of things to get to, a lot of things to talk about. To help me do that, we're glad to have him back. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
Going all right. Galaxy on a road trip. I'm on a road trip. Technical difficulties, bottom of the league. We're dealing with everything that's being thrown our way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to warn everybody right now. I'm single parenting it for this entire weekend, including Monday night's show as well. Let's keep our fingers crossed that everything happens the correct way there. But I think there's zero chance, as in zero chance, of us not being interrupted tonight by the young Mr. Guesman, who has decided that he's going to put his pillow right outside my door and sleep there for the night. So just be prepared. At one point, Eric, I may just be like, turn the camera over to you, hit mute, and then I'll be gone for 20, 30 minutes. You just handle the show, solo as much as you can.
I'll pick up the laptop. We'll take a tour of the Central Valley. It'll be a fun time over here. But this is a good sign to you as a dad. He wants to be close by, feels safe around you. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that they want to be outside the door.
Anybody who has kids, though, understands that whenever Mom was here, he literally, whenever I came home today, and I knew he was a little sensitive because Mom was leaving and all that stuff, he looked at me and he says, "Do not look at me." And I was like, oh, we're in one of those. And then as soon as Mom leaves, now I'm his favorite person. So it's
you're the
hierarchy,
Fair enough.
Okay, good deal. LA Galaxy brought you. Yeah, exactly. LA Galaxy 2-0 losers to Columbus in a game. It wasn't even interesting in terms of a neutral. I think it was actually probably a pretty boring game. Everything happened in the first half. The LA Galaxy started a rotated lineup. Greg Vanney trying to give some guys some rest. Understandable. How they played, not so understandable. And if we look at the LA Galaxy and their results in that first half, that's what did it. That's what killed them. You can look at the XG in that. And as a matter of fact, just look at the number of shots that were taken in that game in the first half. There were 2 taken by the LA Galaxy in the first half. Now, clarify that. The best chance the LA Galaxy had was Raheem Edwards whenever he was played in on goal in that first half. Now, he missed that shot. Had that ball gone in, I'm fairly certain that it would have been waved offside. They waved it offside, but I'm fairly certain that on review that would have stood up because they showed the replay and he looked very much onside. So,
well, can we have that conversation also? Because we used to kind of bash when we had our Fox Sports games. They didn't quite, or even on Spectrum, they didn't quite have the camera angles. It seemed like the replays weren't there. So even when you had VAR implementation, it didn't seem like, you'd had good, camera angles or whatever it was to make it work. It feels like from the games that I've been watching, Apple doesn't seem to cut to a lot of replays or their lines don't seem to be up. And I don't know if just we haven't been in enough of those situations to where there hasn't been, a glaring error. But it just feels like that might be something that comes back to bite us if the camera angles aren't there, the coverage aren't there, because the angle that they have was way behind the play, and it looked on to me. But again, who knows what angles they would have been able to pull up to see if he was on or he was off. But yeah, I thought that was one of the better chances. A lot of grief being given to Edwards for not dishing it off to Joveljic. But when you're one-on-one with the keeper, you're a professional soccer player. Your job is to put the ball in the back of the net. So I don't fault him for taking the shot on goal. I think Chicharito would have taken the shot on goal. If Dejan were on the other end of that, he would have taken the shot on goal. So it is what it is. It's one of those, if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle type of thing. But
yes, absolutely.
We'll see if this comes back to bite us.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I've been critical of Apple. Now I know they've gone to some pretty good production crews in a lot of ways, where these are production crews that are supposed to know soccer and supposed to know how these things work. I find that most of the time it's extremely lacking in soccer knowledge. That there was a play, I think either Joveljic went down in the box, maybe it was Chicharito whenever he came in. That he went down in the box, however that was, there was almost contact, and then unfortunately there wasn't a stoppage of play, so you didn't get an immediate replay. Usually you hold those replays for whenever there's a stoppage and you can take a look. We never got to take a look at it. There was the Aude tackle, right, which Greg Vanney talked about afterwards. In fact, said something to me after the game. The Aude tackle, which, if you look at that and you watch the replays of it, and it was quick, they didn't show a bunch of replays on it, but if you watch replays, that looks like a clear red card, right? And that wasn't called, right? But even then, it feels like the replays were quick. They weren't like, let's keep looking at this because this is something that was missed. And is it crazy to think that if you look at a replay more than once, like on the main TV, that sometimes that might signal VAR to like look at it and actually pay attention to it? Like, I know they're looking at a different feed, although they do have the broadcast feed, but it feels like there's momentum behind that to be like, this is something that probably is borderline and you need to take a look at.
I think it is part of the narrative. I think that's the job of the broadcast crew and the production team as well, is, hey, if this is a missed call, then that's the part of the story of the game. You need to go back and revisit it. And I think when you look at that tackle, it was a pretty horrendous tackle. And I think they're just fortunate that there wasn't enough kind of power behind it for it to seriously injure Aude. I think that's probably the only reason that it wasn't given a red card, is because there wasn't the violent conduct behind it. But that doesn't make it not a red card. It was still so far high up on the knee and with the studs up. It's a pretty clear red card. Just because he didn't break his leg, not to give it a red, that seems a little bit out of control. But I think the broadcast team does have some responsibility to say, I wish we could see a replay of that because that looked to be a red to me, or whatever it is, and it just seemed like that. It just wasn't part of a conversation. It's like, oh, he got tackled. It was a yellow card. We move on.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it again. And so I think the broadcast team definitely has some responsibility there.
Yeah, those Mark Rogandino and Heath Pierce were on the call for this particular one, so they were covering that. The lineup was interesting, although I don't think unexpected. Maybe the players that were selected are unexpected. With Zavaleta coming in, but remember, there's no Mavinga, there's no Sega Koulibaly, so you have both of those injuries. Eric Zavaleta is the only center back that really you can rotate in at this point. For Kranis is I think off with U20s. Mauricio Cuevas actually came back from U20s injured, so that's nice that we know that. So that's not going to happen. So you knew it was, if they were going to rotate, and rotating Cáceres is probably the correct thing to do. The man is older. Mm-hmm. He's put a lot of miles on there. Then it was going to be Eric Zavaleta. We'll talk about him being the captain in a second, because I know everybody just is like beating their head against the wall. But how could he possibly be captain? And we'll discuss that. Daniel Aguirre, Efrain Alvarez, Uri Rosell. So Uri in the center, and then Raheem Edwards at that left side. So really, when you look at it, and again, not Dejan Joveljic up top, but as a single striker, Ricky Puig back in the center, that type of thing. But I just want to, Eric, what did you think of this particular lineup while I go answer my son who's yelling at me?
Like you said, not surprising. We knew with the game coming up on the weekend and how they were coming off of an Open Cup game, or sorry, not an Open Cup game, but it was because it was midweek, that you were naturally going to see some rotation. Just, like you said, Zavaleta gets a lot of flack from the fan base. I think just you saw the mistake on the first goal that it led to it. So, of course, but when you look at the options, you look down the bench and it just doesn't feel like we have the depth there. So it felt a little bit lacking. As the game was unfolding in the first half, I mentioned last year a bunch that the Galaxy were a counterattacking team who's cosplaying as a possession team. In this particular game, Columbus was holding the majority of possession. So this was the perfect opportunity for someone like Edwards, who was now kind of relieved of his responsibility to defend by playing as a wing, and then Efren Alvarez, who has not seen a lot of minutes. It was a perfect opportunity for them to say, okay, we're going to be quick on the counter, we're going to be quick on the transition, and this is their opportunity to kind of shine and make themselves, available. And they cannot stop themselves from slamming it into, defenders' shins. It just seemed like every time they would get close, like this could be a counter, this could be a run, and it was just the wrong pass every single time. So I go back to what I mentioned almost in the preseason, that I don't think we have the depth, that we don't have the horses to squad rotate. And so if you look at it this early in the season, you think about the additions that we're unable to make in the summer. What are we going to do if we do make the playoffs? And that's a whole nother conversation down the line. The opening series is a best of 3 series.
Right.
So you're going to play, 2 or 3 games within a week. And if you can't rotate your squad, or the players that you need to call upon in your depth just don't have it, then, where is that going to ultimately lead us? So for the Klein out crowd who, is saying that maybe the benchmark of getting to the next round, advancing in the playoffs, is almost too easy of a goal. I personally, I don't see that happening. So we're going all in for our 2024 LA Galaxy. Just keep circling back to that theme over and over. The further we get along in the season, I feel like I keep circling back to this year just being a year that we need to throw in the garbage.
Again, and I understand the view. You're 5 points out of a playoff position right now. I mean, it's really hard to say that you absolutely have to throw this away. And by the way, everybody's like, fire sell everybody. There's no benefit to doing that. So that's not going to happen. Right. So
correct.
there's nothing else to do but try to win. That's it. I know everybody, there's no tanking in Major League Soccer. There's none of that. You go out and you try to win. That's it. That's all you try to do.
Well, let me clarify that statement. This is not to say that the LA Galaxy as an organization should throw this season away. Obviously, Vanney has a lot to play for. There's players who have a lot to prove. But from like a fan perspective, in terms of getting up for these games, getting emotional, like, is this the year that we can finally make a run? I saw several people mentioning, after the game on social media, like, it's really hard to get excited about the LA Galaxy team this year with the situations they have going on with the front office and then the results that they're putting out on the field. It just feels like this is not a year that I feel fully invested from a fan perspective. That's kind of what I'm saying. Throw it all away for next year. But you're right, in the standings, and we'll go to that when we get to the standing as well. 2 wins, 6 points, you're back in there. A couple teams drop it, and you're in the conversation. So, and maybe they do get hot at the very end. I'm famous for saying don't peak at the right time. They're definitely not peaking now. So maybe they're saving those peaks for August and September.
They are anti-peaking. That's what they're doing. They're really, like when you jump and you want to get really, really, like you really want to jump up high, right? You bend your knees as far low as you can to really generate. That's what's happening. The Galaxy are they're just bending their knees a lot or something. I don't know.
It's like those little, you remember those little suction ball, like little half dome cups you used to get in the quarter machine, and you'd flip it. And then, right now it's flipped. We haven't popped yet.
We haven't popped.
Right now we're just flipping it inside out.
Yeah. It's interesting. Commercial Underground could give the youth more minutes. Yeah, that's what these guys deserve. More minutes.
That's what's happening.
After watching what happened in that game, that's what everybody. You know what? Give everybody more minutes. I'll be honest with you. I didn't have a problem with the lineup. I understood where they were going with it, which was, let's keep this game 0-0. Let's get into the second half, and then we're going to move some guys in. I asked Greg about it specifically after the game, which was, hey, so how many of that was reaction to the poor first half, whenever you change at halftime, and how much of that was you had a plan to bring guys in? And he said, it's a little bit of both. And so he talked about Uri Rosell not being the guy to be able to cover so much space. And bottom line is that what Alvarez tucked up so high and Raheem Edwards tucked up so high that Rosell was left in tons of space. And then you're asking, guys like Daniel Aguirre to try to cover a lot of space too. Those guys are not the guys that you're trying to cover space. So the game plan, I imagine, was to stay compact, to stay compact and make Columbus try to play through you. What happened instead was guys going all over the place. Raheem Edwards crashing up above. The worst play, obviously, was the first goal, which was on a corner kick, and guys were coming back, and it was a transition play. But to watch Eric Zavaleta pull himself out of the center and go up above the half line on an attacking play, to watch Efrain Alvarez stand in front of somebody and just basically be like, just pass it. I'm not going to tackle you. The whole deal. And then to watch Caligari look over his shoulder, see that he was, ahead of Neil and ahead of Aude, and then watch, Zelarayan just run right by him. He was gone. Yeah. Like, there was no chance. And Greg talked about it. Eric Zavaleta talked about it after the game, but it was like, Eric needs to foul there. Right. And
he tried to foul. And if that's a perfect example of, like, halfway doesn't get you there. Either tackle him fully, like bring him down, American football tackle,
right?
Tug him by the shirt, or you need to run and get in position. And he did neither. He didn't run back to position, and he didn't do the professional foul at midfield. That would have very easily been a happy yellow card to take at midfield there, and it was the wrong decision on both ends.
I will say this: I think there's a lot of misconception about Eric Zavaleta and his role within the team. I know everybody just wants to scream nepotism and all this stuff.
That's fair.
And it's like, okay, that's fine. But here's the deal. He's highly respected in the locker room. All right. I know people don't believe that. That's fine. You don't have to believe me. I've talked to guys. I asked them. He's highly respected in the locker room. Do you remember whenever Dayon was running to the stands? After he got subbed off and he was just clapping and he was running to the locker room. He wasn't going to stop. There were two guys who stopped him. Raheem Edwards and Eric Zavaleta were the guys who did that. Eric Zavaleta is a leader in that locker room. You may not like to think about it, but that is absolutely the way that it is. So I don't think any of the players had a problem with him being captain. Just most of the fans had a problem with him being captain. That was not, I don't think that had anything to do with anything. I don't think anybody's upset about it. I think everybody's fine about it. I think everybody's upset about losing. I don't think they were upset that Eric Zavaleta got the captaincy, but if you want to make it about that, go ahead. It's just, that's not, I would just say that's an outside perception and not an inside perception. We actually have somebody, Alex, in our Discord, and I don't know if Alex is in here. I haven't seen him in the chat room as well. Alex sits behind the bench and he listens to Zavaleta and he goes, he's basically like another coach. Remember, we said the same thing about Sasha Kljestan and that type of thing. Now, Sasha gets a lot more respect for being a much higher level player with that. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that Eric Zavaleta is a good player because I don't think he is, right? But when you're asking about him wearing the captain's armband, just, again, you're not privy to most of the stuff that happens on this team. Just remember that. We only get to see it out on the field.
This, I don't know that this even needs to be explained, but we'll say it out loud. The captain doesn't have to be the best player on the field. It's the person who's going to lead the team or have conversations with the referee and kind of guide the conversation and be that person who the players defer to when it comes to those situations. So I understand that perspective. And the other piece of it, and I don't know if this was part of the discussion that happened in the post-game press conference as well, I believe most of the time when captain selection happened, it's a player vote. It's not, the coach dubbing it. I know the optics of Vanney's nephew getting the captain's armband when you have guys like Jonathan Bond, and
Ricky Puig,
Delgado,
maybe,
who maybe been
Delgado,
Puig,
yep.
So I understand the optics of it, but from what you're explaining and from what we're kind of hearing the background on is that Zavaleta is kind of the big brother in that locker room, so he gets the start, he gets the captaincy. I don't have an issue with it. I have an issue with the play.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, it's totally fair. By the way, Jalen Neal gets burned one-on-one there, and you know that, listen, anytime you get one-to-one, right, you've already failed. As a defender, as a defense, you are already in trouble. To see where Jalen had to sort of pick up Zelarayan in that particular play, trying to shift over, but not trying to come over too fast, not trying to leave the guy because it was Aude and Neal back. I understand why he sort of soft played it. He just missed up the one spot they missed up. He should have just taken away the middle and allowed him to go to the line, because Bond probably had the line covered a lot better than he would if he could cut it back and open himself up.
Yeah, that's one of those things where we don't want to sound like Jalen Neal apologists, because he's someone who is a young player and we've built him up. And so, Eric Zavaleta makes a mistake, we grill him. Jalen Neal makes a mistake and we say, oh, it's okay. It wasn't necessarily his fault. He got beat there. He got beat. But the one thing I want to have in consideration, Lucas Zelarayan has cooked a lot of defenders in MLS. So it's not like, this was some, person with no particular skill who just, you let some bum, beat you. This is a very skilled player who has beaten a lot of defenders 1v1 and, won MLS Cup, for his club. Like this, to get beat by that player, I don't know that there's a lot of shame in getting, beaten 1v1 versus Zelarayan.
He's upset. Right, like Neil will be upset about that.
It's tough. Yeah, he could have done better there. It is what it is.
Absolutely, and you know what? That's when you have a young defense. Caligari got skinned on that one as well, right? He got caught too far up. He checks over his shoulder. He doesn't see where the line is, right? Even though he checks on his shoulder, he should know that the line is well behind him because it almost looked like he was trying to play an offside trap. Whenever Zelarayan just gone right behind him, he's like, oh, he's going to be offside. Oh, wait, there's two guys way back there. And quite honestly, with the danger that was approaching in that area, the correct answer there is to drop away. Zavaleta, if he realizes the danger he's actually in, is not to press up the line there, but actually to drop back. Caligari, same thing. It's not to press there because Caligari kind of got caught in between pressing and standing, and he stood and watched Zell around. Somebody said he did just run back from the corner, but he was able to establish himself in position before he got run by. Yeah, it was a choice.
Decision that he made. Yeah.
So you look at those things again. This is a Galaxy team that was trying to get to the second half and have it be 0-0. That's not great, and that's not what you want to have happen. Greg Vanney talking about how, it was a choice about whether or not he had a really big plan for this or not. It was interesting. He said, he said something like, I pained over this. I was thinking about how to rotate guys, how to give guys a break, a breather in order to get them ready for these, next couple of games that we have. And, it was something that we had to try to rotate a little bit because we had to give guys some minutes. And if you look, the guys he does choose to play through the 90 minutes basically are guys who are younger, who don't have, who he thinks, he put in the Aude and the Caligari and the Jalen Neal, right? And the Puig in there, right? And you put in Joveljic and you're like, you guys go out there and run your butts off because you'll be ready in 2 days whenever we play DC United. Yeah. No problem, right? You'll be ready for that. But
the recovery time is different.
Right. Tyler Boyd was questionable a couple games ago type of thing. So I imagine that he was one of those guys where it's sort of like, let's try to give him a break. Gaston Brugman, try to give him a little bit of break, right? So you're trying to give these guys a blow and then you have to adjust. And what happens in the second half is the Galaxy come out with Mark Delgado is in there, right? And so all of a sudden they start controlling the midfield again. The night and day difference really, when you look at like the shots that they took and just their ability to be maybe just a little bit better was really clear. So you had 2 shots in the first half. One was Caligari, one was Joveljic. And then you come into the second half where you made some changes. Joveljic gets a shot. Puig gets a shot. Aguirre gets a shot. Aguirre should have scored. That
would have been nice for him to get that one.
That was a big chance for him, and I think he should have had that one. Aguirre should have scored. Mark Delgado had a tight angle shot. Javier Hernandez had a couple chances in that second half. By the way, Chicha's just struggling, and I don't know if it's a service issue. We've seen that before, but it feels like it's more than that. It feels like he's not finding his way into the right spots at the right time, and he's not being able to collect. That could just be, that could be something that clicks here soon, Eric, and it could just fall into place. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like Chicha's struggling to sort of keep pace right now.
It feels like a Robbie Keane 2016. Like, you are thankful for what you've seen before, but maybe it's just not all the way there. You'll maybe get a few glimpses and a few flashes, but it's going to be fewer and further between. I feel like that's where we're at with Chicharito. To me, in terms of Vanney's roster configuration and rotation, this would have been a game. If you're going to give Chicha the rest or the night off, give him the night all the way off. Bring in, Preston Judd. Have him be your option off the bench. I know he wasn't even an option there. So
that's interesting, by the way. We didn't get to ask about that, so I don't know if there's an injury there because it almost feels like maybe that would have been a guy you would bring in off the bench. But 20-man roster, and you only have so many, so there are going to be guys.
It's a little bit different, yeah.
Packed in some extra midfielders this time. Efrain Alvarez comes back into it, so maybe it's Alvarez and Judd are sort of the ones. I know you probably talked about Alvarez, and I think you talked about a little bit whenever I was gone trying to deal. Well, I'm sure you talked about Raheem Edwards as well, but you had guys who were sort of trying to prove themselves, right? Like especially
they were forcing it.
Alvarez was outside of one ball that he played was atrocious, and I don't know that he looks to have gotten slower as the season has gone on. He looks to be more out of shape, out of understanding about what he needs to do and how he needs to do it. I don't know that there's any saving his career at this point. And that's probably shocking to say for a kid who's so young, but you got to get him out of here. He's got to go. You got to get rid of, you probably got to move him.
Scenery.
Yeah, he needs a change. The only hope he has of being a good soccer player or, a high level soccer player for a very long time is to get him out of the camp here at LA. I don't know what else will do it. But Alvarez cannot continue to be there.
Yeah, I don't want to just keep, dancing on the Alvarez grave because we've hit that drum so many times. But one of the things that I did find almost comical was in the first half, they mentioned what you get from Alvarez is the value that he brings on set pieces. And then he goes to a corner and it's a short, the corner didn't make it into the box or the corner didn't go all the way to the end. You mentioned he did have one good ball, and it kind of goes to that conversation that I was having about Chicharito. You're going to see those glimpses. He didn't, earn his way to the contract that he has, or that, his minutes on the team from not having any skill. We have to look at it from that perspective as well. Like there's not a complete failure there. He has some skill, and you're going to see that on display. Where it comes down to is the consistency. You're just not seeing that consistency from Alvarez on a day-to-day making it work. Yeah, there's our special guest. So consistency in terms of sleep, that's what Jake needs to get coming up soon here. But but Alvarez, that's why you're seeing the same people kind of go after him over and over again. It's like, okay, when is it going to happen? When is it going to turn on? And at this point, I think it is fair to say the experiment is over. But you think about how many games we are into the season. We're 12 games into the season. So the experiment can't be over. It's kind of like our argument and our conversation that we've had about Douglas Costa. Can he contribute to the team? Can he be a valuable piece? To me, excuse me, I feel like there's it's gone. He's not going to be able to have it and bring it to you, but you're stuck with him for the season. So he's going to play again. He's going to start a game. He's going to come in off the bench, and you're going to hope that he's able to find some of that magic and make it happen. So that's the unfortunate thing. And I'll circle back to it. That's why are we throwing the season away? If the Douglas Costa experiment is over, we still have to deal with it. The Efren Alvarez experiment is over. We still have to, push through it. Chicharito seems to be pretty much done in terms of being at his peak and being a goal scorer or, a golden boot leader in MLS. So he's done. So that's three players, who are basically throwing out the window. So,
I know.
How do you get excited about rooting for this team from week to week if there are players who were just already decided that we're done with?
Yeah, it feels. Listen. Alvarez is more of a choice for Vanney at this point to whether he includes him, and he's been pretty clear that he's not including him in things. That's pretty obvious, and we're seeing a lot of that. Again, I thought the team played better in the second half whenever there were some subs that came in, and then there was the control. Right, there was no control in the first half. I was Jalen Neal's mom. Yeah, go ahead.
But I will say, even though it felt like there was no control, I felt like there were moments and opportunities to exploit it, and they didn't take advantage of those. So you're right. They did have more control. They did kind of slow things down, but it's a chicken or the egg type of thing too. Did Columbus, with the 2-goal lead, concede some of that? And so, but I did think there were opportunities in the first half, and I wasn't that upset about the lineup. I was like, okay, if these guys can, stick to the game plan and make things happen, there's possibilities. They didn't capitalize on it, and then they made mistakes on top of that. So it was a double whammy.
Yeah, there were a lot of mistakes. Well, I'll tell you this. Jalen Neal's mom, Sarah, was in our chat, in our Discord, and she was like, Jalen was exhausted after the game. Well, yeah, because the Galaxy were chasing the ball around for most of the first half. The defense, and I said this, and I asked this to Jonathan Bond after the game. I said, look at this. This is an offense that is struggling right now. The defense hasn't been great, but the offense has put the Galaxy defense in no position to succeed. And I said, does the offense need to step it up? And he goes, oh, it's not really a defense versus an offense thing. Very much a team thing. I get that. But the LA Galaxy, so far in 2023, have scored one goal on the road. One goal on the road. That is it. The entire history of 2023, one goal on the road. They scored it in the 35th minute of the very first game against Dallas, which means they've now gone 505 minutes of scoreless soccer on the road, and that will continue whenever they head to DC United. We'll get to continue to count that. This is the type of stat that means you're not winning any games on the road. The best you can hope for, and some that the Galaxy have accomplished this year, is the best you can hope for is possibly getting a draw, right? And when we go and look at the LA Galaxy, who have been shut out 5 times this season, right? Two of those were 0-0 draws. Okay, I believe both of those were on the road as well. Yeah.
And I'm looking through the schedule here as well. When you have that conversation, is this an offense thing or a defense thing? The offense hasn't scored in MLS play more than 2 goals in a game. So if you're saying, hey, the offense scored 2 goals or they scored 3 goals, the defense let us down, that's not what's happening here. You
Nope.
know, it's not like they're going gangbusters and the defense is just their danger back there and giving up a ton of goals. The offense isn't lighting it up either. The highest tally that they've had in the short sample size this first third of the season is 3 goals against Seattle, and that was against the Seattle Academy team, essentially.
Yeah.
So in terms of MLS play, they haven't scored more than 2 goals.
Correct.
So, you look at averages in a game, 2 goals, maybe that could be enough to win you a game, but you're gonna need both pieces to set.
Yeah. I can sort of see that. I know what you mean. You need both pieces to step up. And listen, I get Jonathan Bond's thing. We're all one team here, right? We're all one team. We're all doing the same thing. The defense starts at the first forward, and offense starts with Jonathan Bond, right? I get those sayings, but the bottom line is, we've talked about it. The Galaxy take poor chances, right? Look at the expected goals on some of these. 0.07, 0.05, 0.06, 0.02. The 8%, 2%, 8%, 2%, 5% chance of converting from where they're converting. Again, one of the highest ones is probably Raheem Edwards on the 1v1, but it gets canceled out because they call it offside.
They don't count that.
Yeah, they don't count. So there probably would have been a bump there, maybe a 0.3 or a 0.2 or maybe even a 0.18, but it would have been probably a double digit, where if you look at all the rest of the chances, none of those are double digit chances. So they're not creating. And then to watch the second half where the Galaxy do get that possession, they do control the game, they do have the possession that they want, and they're able to move Columbus around a little bit, they have nothing to show for it. 0. And again, that's an offensive thing for me, because you had the chances, you had the places. Aguirre, should have scored the one. We've talked about that one in the second half that should have been put away. But you have those chances, and you're not putting them away. And I asked Greg, what needs to happen for the offense to sort of get going, and he's like, we need to. He goes, it's not like there weren't chances. He was sort of like us. I'll go back to Peter Vermees. I think it was in their Open Cup game where they got blown out or something like that, and he's like, we had chances. We should have scored 5 or 6 goals. He goes, I can't score the goals, right? And it was like I'm waiting for Greg to do that one here, because when you look at the disparity, 10 goals for the LA Galaxy, 20 goals against. So 2-1 against the LA Galaxy so far in 2023. When you look at that's yes.
Fun fact, I think Peter Vermees is the first player to score against the Galaxy ever in the 96 opener for the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars.
He could have been.
Look that up.
Fact check it.
Fun time, but I think he's the first person to ever score on the LA Galaxy. Just that's your fun fact of the day.
Okay, good. If it's true, it's the fun fact of the day. We'll find out here shortly. So I look at this, I look at momentum charts, right, in this, and look, clearly it swings back in that second half, right? And that's where the Galaxy should have capitalized, and they didn't. The Galaxy had more than enough chances to tie this game. They gave up too many chances in that first half in order to be down 2-0. I actually thought they were weathering the storm very well for a little while. I thought the defense didn't look panicked. But then you give up a goal, and that opens up the floodgates. Again, it's the same old thing that we talk about the Galaxy is they're going to get caught going forward once they give up a goal, right? And we've seen that throughout their history, and certainly under Vanney and almost anybody else too, by the way. Let's be very fair. But the LA Galaxy have only scored first in 3 games this year. All right, that's it.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation I think we were having via text. It's like, what are the stats when the Galaxy score first? And it's like, it's such a small sample size, you can't even really gather anything from it. You have to score first a bunch of times to have stats dictate whether this is a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, scoring second doesn't seem to be working for them. 4 goals for the LA Galaxy, 13 goals against whenever they allow the first goal. Whenever they score the first goal, currently 5-4. Remember, one of those goals, which we just talked about, was the Dallas goal, where they scored the first goal, and then they gave up 3 goals, and it was a 3-1 loss away at Dallas. So, listen, I'm not tapped out on this Galaxy team, and somebody did point out it's like, hey, I said 2 points would be great on Monday. Like if you get 2 points out of this, it's great. But bottom line is if you just focus on one of these games and get, really push and you come back with 3 points, 3 points is even better than 2 points, right?
It's a successful business trip.
It is, but there's zero chance that you and I have any confidence that they're able to go into DC and beat them in DC. In fact, it hasn't happened in so long that I don't even know why you would suggest it.
I was going to say, don't spoil the guaranteed to be wrong predictions, but I think we know how that's going to go when we get to that portion of the show. We jinxed it last week. Maybe we'll jinx it again this week.
Let's go to the roster and talk a little bit about the roster. Obviously, the numbers came out. We told you on Monday night that we sort of knew where the Galaxy would be, $23.4 million. We said we didn't think there would be any surprises. I don't think there are any surprises. The only thing everybody freaked out about was Uri Rosell at $500,000. I think Efrain Alvarez now on a TAM contract. And we knew already how much money he was making. That's not a surprise. So I don't think anybody was surprised by it. It's just when you see it, you get angry again. Those types of things. Sega at 500 is not really a surprise. Douglas Costa at 4.5, I think is relatively under. We all knew that. Ricky Puig got a little bit of a bump up to 1.7, maxed, or 1.65 for the base salary, which is max TAM. So we've kind of figured that might be the case, that he would get boosted up to max TAM. Even though he's a designated player, which means at any point the LA Galaxy could bring in a designated player and bump Ricky Puig back down if they wanted to, except that then they'd have to deal with the U22 ramifications of that as well. Efrain Alvarez was a U22 player, not anymore. Now he's out at TAM. So you look at the U22 players the Galaxy have, and probably I think some of the more successful U22 trades in all of Major League Soccer, with Aude, with Caligari, and with Joveljic. Those are, if you're trying to use the U22 mechanism to really boost yourself, having those guys is probably a pretty good. I don't know that anybody else in all of Major League Soccer has 3 U22 players that are as good as what the LA Galaxy currently have. And I think they really hit using those on defense as well, being able to spend the extra cash and getting some quality guys who maybe are here for the next, 3 years, 4 years, that type of thing. It's one of those. Is there anything on here that surprised you? There's any big ones?
Nothing that surprised me. The Alvarez bump that he got was surprising because we knew that was going to affect it. But nothing is surprising to me. I feel like this was right in line. It did pop up with Uri Rosell making $500,000. That was a topic of conversation as a bench player, but then the Galaxy came out and corrected that. The funny thing that I found out about that is whenever these get released, we're told not to take them seriously because it's not all the way true. But if there's a lot of people complaining about it, they'll come out and tell you when it's wrong. But when there's a lot of people complaining about Douglas Costa or Efrain Alvarez, they're not going to tell you those are wrong either.
Yeah.
So you can't say that it's all bad or it's all good. Yeah, of course, there's going to be some mistakes, and those things will be clarified. But the ones that I think really make a big dent, to me, it's Efrain Alvarez is the one that sticks out the most, and then Uri Rosell, even though the Galaxy aren't necessarily on the hook for what he is supposed to bring to the team. That's a hefty salary. Yeah,
I think 86 is what they're actually responsible for in Sporting Kansas City, paying the rest of that. For that, Mavinga at 452. As somebody asked, what about Mauricio Cuevas down here at 0? They didn't list him in the thing. For whatever reason, his salary didn't hit whenever they had
after,
that. Yeah, it may have been after. This was April 30th, right? And so it should have still hit, but for whatever reason there wasn't. So the Galaxy's still missing one player, as far as I could tell. And I looked trying to find Cuevas and all sorts of stuff on the website. So Galaxy at 23.4 million, that puts them in second highest paid payroll. The highest is Toronto FC, and they're up a significant amount actually from that. So I think $27 million if I'm correct. So
all those Italians are expensive.
That's what I heard. So anyway, that's sort of the roster. Again, nothing surprising here. There's some dead contracts here. Costa 4.5. That's a dead contract. Efrain Alvarez at the 766. That's guaranteed salaries at 660 for the base salary. Dejan Joveljic was, I think, expected with the U22 and where he's at. Lucas Caligari is there. Martin Cáceres, I have no problem. Jonathan Bond, I think we all knew that he was right around there. Again, none of these, I think, are any sort of surprise, except maybe I know that Johnny Perez, right? And looking at Jonathan Perez, 250 or 283 for a guy who's not playing on the first team, and Jalen Neal out here. at 125. Don't worry, they all talk about this in the locker room, so everybody will know, right? They're sort
I was
of like,
going to say, if we can get an agent on, I think there's going to be some renegotiations if we're Jalen Neal in the upcoming season. I guess the other thing you could say is Jonathan Klinsmann at 200 as a backup keeper.
Yeah.
The expectation, but when you look at the big picture, in league wide, that it's not, if you're gonna complain, you can, but I don't know that it's worth your time if you're doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's power through some of these other ones. Total DP minutes, I'm keeping very close track of this. So 49.6% of the total available minutes is what the DPs this year have played. Now, I added another chart because I was like, well, how does that compare with other years the LA Galaxy have had? Oh, well, thanks for asking. So whenever
I feel like this is a conversation every year when we keep doing this.
I know. It is one of those things. So 50.7% was the average in 2018, 59.2 in 2019, 57.9, 62.9, 62.1, and then 49.6. So when you look under Greg Vanney at 62.9 or 62.1, the 49.6 is a significant departure from what it had been previously in some of these things. So let's see. I think I have a little munchkin in my room again, so I will let you take over some of this. You wanna talk about that chart? Go ahead.
The irony of the percentage of players with the DP minutes, the player who has probably played the most DP minutes over the course of this chart was Zlatan Ibrahimovic at 38 years old, coming off knee surgery. He was not the injury concern or kind of staying on the field. He did have his injury concerns and his red card issues and things like that, but comparatively to the amount of time the players like Giovanni Dos Santos, Roman Alessandrini, Chicharito, Douglas Costa, the amount of time that they've missed pales in comparison to what Zlatan gave us. So it's just it's crazy looking back in these recent years, and it just gives more credence to the Klein out crowd. You look at, this is over. You've overseen this, through various general managers, through various coaches, and the players that keep getting brought in just can't make it onto the field. That's a pretty strong indictment in terms of the front office making these decisions. I'm going to circle back to the beginning because I think Josh missed a little bit of a super chat in the beginning. So at the very beginning of the show, we did have a super chat from Gary. So big shout out to Gary. He said, can't make it today, but wanted to support the show. Thank you guys for everything. I will listen on Spotify later. Hit that like button. So I will co-sign what Gary is saying and hitting that like button if you haven't already done so. And, you'll hear this later on Spotify. So appreciate you, Gary. So good times in terms of the amount of DP players. So you can tell that I'm not used to leading the show as Josh isn't here. So I'll kind of circle through the chat and see how we're seeing. It seems like there's a lot of people backing up that, the Klein error in a nutshell is basically what's being summed up by this DP on the field situation and a lot of the front office situation. Another Pottermus in the chat say couldn't win an egg cup. So that kind of goes right in line with the wooden spoon. So we have our wooden spoon in our egg comparison there. So good times all the way through. Going back to the salaries, I think the one thing that we were mentioning is Douglas Costa making $4.5 million in terms of compared around the league, looking at the players and DPs and, who is it that kind of makes a comparable salary on where you can get players kind of making those contributions. You look at Luis Araujo over at Atlanta United. He kind of had a big game yesterday. He's at 4.4. So if you can get a player like that, would you be happy with that? Christian Benteke at DC United, we're going to talk about him when we get to the preview. Would you like to have a forward like him instead of Chicharito at 4.4 million? Joseph Martinez, he's someone who's coming off the bench for Miami. He's at 4.3 million. Lucas Zelarayan, he's at 3.8 million. So that's really where the Douglas Costa contract and DP salary really hurts, because when you look at his salary in comparison to the people around the league and what they contribute, that's really where it really stings, because you do that comparison. If the Galaxy could have had this person instead of Douglas Costa, how much better off would they be? If they could have someone like Lucas Zelarayan, you'd be better off. Someone like Carlos Hill in New England, he's making 3.5. That's a win. Nico Lodero, 3.2. So they just keep Hani Mukhtar reigning MVP, 3.1. So, I could keep rattling off names here, but you just see, how big of a difference in the chasm is from the level of players that we're able to bring in. So I'm going to circle through the chat. Still here. It looks like I'm still driving the ship here. So we're seeing sell Costa in the summer. I don't see that happening. Again, we know where we are in this situation. How would I spend $23 million on the team? Again, probably give myself a nice salary as the head coach, and then all league minimums would be my solution to all that if I was in charge here. But then again, that would get me fired fairly quickly. So they wouldn't have a lot of boycott situations on my hands. So we have people who are willing to buy Costa for $17. So a lot of fun things going on in the chat. So while we wait for Josh to come back, he's back. Is he back?
I don't know. I don't think for how long. I don't know how long we're going to make this. Let's just jump to the DC game because we want to get through this. And if we have to end a little bit early, I apologize, but we're having a minor meltdown today. So LA Galaxy, DC United coming up on Saturday, May 20th at 4:30 p.m. is your TV start time. 4:39 p.m. is your kickoff time. Audi Field in Washington, D.C. Very interesting two teams. Did you have a dramatic game preview that you wanted to do?
I do not. I'm on limited resources on the road here.
Okay. Yeah. That's, you know what? Quite honestly, good, because I'm like, I don't think we've got time for that. Let's see. I wanted to go to... I have a document. Yes.
I had one more vamp. I'll keep vamping if you need to do a little thing. We did have some news and updates today about MLS coming to San Diego. So San Diego was announced that they are going to be the 30th franchise in MLS. So again, that's to me, it's a potentially damaging hit to the LA Galaxy because of the fan base and the market that we're in. Southern California, obviously, you see with the market and it being a hotbed for what it is. If you live in or near San Diego right now, why would you choose to support the LA Galaxy? I know we have listeners who are in the San Diego area, a lot of San Diego Galaxy fans, but you think about at the time that the league was taking place, San Diego did not have a professional team. The Galaxy are on top of the world. So let's take the 2.5-hour drive, head up to, Dignity Health Sports Park and check out some professional soccer, check out the Galaxy. Right now, even with the addition of the San Diego Loyal, you're seeing people gravitate towards that, even though it's USL, it's hometown, supporting local soccer, all of the pieces for that. So now you get a professional team. If you're on the fence at all, you're jumping into that local team and supporting the local, the local MLS club there. And if you were formerly an LA Galaxy fan, they always have that adage, you could change your wife, you can change your wardrobe, but you can't change your club. But I don't know that I'd fault someone if their kind of mission statement, and I kind of fall into this regard, is supporting local soccer. And if they live in San Diego, getting behind the San Diego MLS team. So I think while this is possibly good for the growth of the league, and we'll see maybe overexpansion being an issue in the future, this is definitely could be a potentially damaging hit to the LA Galaxy in terms of getting a market share of a fan base and kind of growing their brand and their culture.
Yeah, I'm sure you talked about the San Diego Galaxy fans who routinely have watch parties and all that fun stuff. So that's where we're at. All right. By the way, I see. Okay, I'm not going to pick on this person, but they're like, only true fans will stick with the Galaxy. If you're a new fan, why would you support the? Listen, that has nothing to do with it either. Like, if I'm a San Diego person and I have to travel all the way up because the Galaxy were the closest one, if you're telling me I could now support San Diego and it takes me 10 minutes to drive to the stadium, I'm supporting San Diego. I always said if I move somewhere, I might do corner of somewhere else, right? I mean, the bottom line is I'm addicted to soccer, and I want that. But yeah.
And if it's a good product, because when the Galaxy are playing well, it's worth the drive to go out there. There are a lot of people, and maybe things are a little bit different now. But when I was a little bit younger, a trip to Tijuana was a good time.
That's right.
When the entertainment is there,
that's right.
It's worth the drive. Especially if you have some friends who go to going to college in San Diego. That's a nice little trip, or used to be a nice little trip across the way there. Same thing with Xolos of Tijuana. You have the Mexican Baseball League that's down there. There's a lot of people who make that trip because it's entertaining.
Yeah.
So if the LA Galaxy are entertaining and they are doing well, you can compete for the market there. So right now, they're just not in the mix.
Corner of the San Diego FC. I said I would drive the train down there. I think people thought I was defecting. I just meant whenever the Galaxy play, I'll take the train down to San Diego to watch. And by the way, I won't do that either because it won't run on the schedule that I need. So that's not happening. All right. Let's see. What else do we got? Okay. this game, DC United, LA Galaxy, DC United coming up in DC United at Audi Field. Again, some interesting teams here. The Galaxy 2-7-3, 9 points. I'm showing you my cheat sheet, by the way. I had it and I printed it out, but I sometimes take a picture of it just in case I forget that, and I forgot that. It's downstairs. So the LA Galaxy 2-7-3, 9 points, 12 games played. DC United 4-5-4, 16 points, 13 games played. If you look at the road record for the Galaxy, 0-4-2, home record for DC United, 2-2-2. Not great, not perfect, okay. All time between these two teams, 2017 and 11, with the LA Galaxy in the lead on that. Last 5 games, Galaxy have 6 points. Last 5 games for DC, 8 points. If we're talking about streaks and everything else, six losses in their last 8 games. It's a lot more than that whenever you actually want to for the LA Galaxy, but I decided to make it into that stat. The DC United has 1 loss in their last 6, but they're winless in their last 3. Go figure that one out. That sounds like one of those word problems where 2 trains leave, you know?
You're speaking my language. That's math curriculum right there. Yeah, that's a 3-step word problem.
Okay, good. Dejan Joveljic is your leading goal scorer, and then Christian Benteke has been very, very good for DC United. He's going to be a monster. Jalen Neal, Martin Caceres are going to have their hands full with that. He's got 5 goals, but a very big body in there. And then you have Klitsch as well, and Klitsch is also at 5 assists there. So Tyler Miller coming back for goalkeeper as well. So I want to touch on that. And then DC is unbeaten in the last 5 home matches against the Galaxy, 2-0-3, and the last road win for LA in DC was in July of 2010. Just giving you a heads up on that particular one.
That's one of those on the game preview screen that really hurt. Unbeaten in the last 5 home matches. DC is unbeaten. They haven't won since 2010. So that's 13 years without a win at DC United. You also are having Derek Williams, Commercial Underground, a tradition that we get a Derek Williams reunion. So we know what happened so far. We had our Cabral reunion. We saw how that ended up. We have our Derek Williams reunion. So hopefully everyone kind of keeps their limbs intact. Taxi Fontes is another player that DC United have who's going to be one to watch. You mentioned Klitsch. He leads the team with 5 assists. So between Benteke, Fontes, and Klitsch, these are players that the Galaxy are going to have their hands full. So is the defense going to be able to stop them from scoring? Probably not. So it's the offense's turn to kick it on, and we've seen how that's gone so far. So kind of bad news all the way around. If we go to
I was going to say that it looks like Taxi, by the way, is injured right now, and they're expecting him back mid-June. So that's something. It looks like DC United has half their roster that is like injured, and at the same time, they've been playing better under Wayne Rooney. So I wouldn't expect that there's a huge downgrade in terms of what they're doing and how they've been playing. So they just came off a 0-0 draw, which was interesting. 0-0 draw with the Philadelphia Union. And that's, we all know, Philadelphia, a fairly good team. They went to Philly, and they held them 0-0 in that game, which I think they might have even outshot Philadelphia in the game. So
they look, from the highlights, they look to be the better of the team. Philly doesn't seem to be on the same pace that they were last season. There were a lot of preseason darlings from MLS talking heads that this was going to be Philadelphia's year, and they haven't seemed to fire on all cylinders. But that's not to say that's not a good team and a quality point that DC was able to do to go on the road and get a point there. Are you ready for 538?
538. Tell me what 538 has to say.
538 has DC United with a 46% chance to win, and then the LA Galaxy with a 28% chance to win. So heavily favoring DC United. If we're thinking about, we've been bashing 538. Last week they went 7 out of 13, so 54%. They're trending they're peaking at the right time. They're trending in the right direction. But not in the Galaxy's favor. So kind of an unfortunate thing. If you look to the Bovada odds, you have DC United at plus 110, the Galaxy at plus 230.
Right.
I'd stay away. Don't bet on this game. Go find another game to bet on. I wouldn't feel good about either direction betting money on that. So that's your odds for this weekend.
I'm excited to watch the game at Audi Field in terms of watching it on TV because I won't be there. But excited to sort of see how that plays out. That looks like I've driven by that stadium in DC, and it absolutely looks like a place that would be so much fun to go see a game. So if there's any Galaxy fans going out there, Eric, your predictions, guaranteed to be wrong predictions. I like how people get on us when we're like, how could anybody predict what this team is going to do outside of, I'll say they're going to lose 2-0. Ha.
Yeah. Well, people got upset with us, but then they're happy with us because they like shoving in our face when we're wrong. So you're saying a 2-0 loss. I'm with you. I'm not expecting the Galaxy to score, tons of goals that prove me wrong, prove me otherwise. I'm expecting like a 3-0. I'm seeing Benteke on a tired LA Galaxy defense with squad rotation. I'm seeing him get some goals.
Right.
So I could see this being a 3-0 game.
All right. Super chat, $2 super chat from Angelino818. Shout out for the Galaxy making the AAPI merch pretty cool. Have you seen any of that? I don't even know that I've been
seen
paying.
some of the collaborations that they're doing, and they're posting about it. That's what it's all about this month. And so big shout out. That's all of the jerseys, the collaborations. From that perspective, the Galaxy are doing a good job in that regard.
Right.
Roster construction,
right.
Front office staff.
Yep.
Not exactly setting the world on fire, but a shout out to the marketing team and the social media team and these collaborations that they're putting in place. That I feel strongly, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that the Galaxy is getting that part right.
Yeah, SD Galaxy fans in the chat room, by the way. Speaking of San Diego watch parties, come join us for the game on Saturday. We'll be at Rip Current Brewing in North Park. There you go. So if you're going down there,
San Diego Galaxy fans in the chat, perfect timing.
So by the way, San Diego has some of the best food in like all of California. Every time I go down there, I find an unbelievable place. That's where I got introduced to the deviled eggs with the chicken nuggets in them. And you're like,
wow,
that
is a wild
really?
card.
I did
not think that was going to be what you said when you talk about San Diego delicacies.
No, I am the deviled eggs, chicken nuggets inside the deviled egg. Like they stick it on top of the deviled egg, and you eat all the thing together. I'm going to tell you right now that ever since my wife and I had the chicken nugget deviled eggs, all of our deviled eggs must have chicken nuggets in them. That's how mind shattering it is. So definitely you should go out there and try to find those I can't remember the name of it. It was like the Deck or something like that. It wasn't the Deck. It was something else. But it was like a gastropub. It was a smaller place. And we went to the guy and he's like, you got to try the deviled eggs with chicken nuggets. I'm like, really? And he's like, really? And then we had them. We're like, oh, we're going to need 2 more orders of that. Keep them coming until we tell you to stop.
If you would have told me deviled eggs with chicken nuggets, I would have said, yeah, keep bringing them. We'll make it work.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's certainly what it is. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it for now.
I think that's good. You're a busy dad. You're dadding hard right now.
If I would have known that he would just sit here and be quiet, then we would have done this from the very beginning. I think that might have been the best answer, but I was pretty certain this wouldn't happen. So anyway, LA Galaxy playing against DC United coming up on Saturday.
I feel like my internet's cutting out.
Yeah, it is. You are. You're in and out. 4:30 p.m.
What a show tonight.
4:30 p.m. 4:39 p.m. Again, that's 7:30. The big thing here is that the Galaxy play on Saturday. They'll have Sunday, Monday, and then they play at LAFC on Tuesday. I'll tell you right now, I have no idea how Greg Vanney is setting up his team in order to look at the U.S. Open Cup in this particular case. It's just really, really interesting to see. I would not be surprised either way that either it's a first-team lineup or it's not a first-team lineup. I have no sense of how that's going right now. So anyway, that's what it's all sort of set up, and we'll be there to watch. MLS Season Pass on Apple TV is where you can find it. No free game this time, in case you want to complain. Whiny Galaxy fan. I can't watch the games. They even have a free month again. Like, you can get another free month. Just go sign up. So that's there as well. All right. Anything else?
No, I think you nailed it. I think we're good to move on there.
Okay, good. Then why don't you tell people where they can find you? We'll get on out of here. Let's go.
Shout out to the current Wooden Spoon LA Galaxy, and this is as the current Wooden Spoon episode for Corner of the Galaxy. So you can find me on all the social media platforms at HammerEV9. That's Hammer EV and the number 9 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over Corner of the Galaxy once I get it fixed. And you can find cornerofthegalaxy.com, all that fun stuff. YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, any place you can find us. We certainly appreciate it. $2 super chat from Tim. You're killing it, Josh. Hammer, you rock. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you. All right. For Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. This is Little Jake. We hope that you have had a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will catch you on Monday after this weekend game. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.